Every project has to start somewhere. Most forms of media like movies and music can just happen easily. All you need is a movie studio or production company or record label to increase your chances of getting it out to the public to see. Television, that's a different story. See, these networks like to see your premise and how your characters and story function as an episode to see if they want to greenlight said project. This is called a pilot, the supposed first episode of your show. This is the main factor whether or not the network wants to see more of your fictional universe and test the waters for future audiences. But this isn't always the case. Sometimes the best ones won't get to see the light of day, while others that may not look so great get approved for being safe. So what about those failed pilots? What made them stick out, or I guess not stick, to certain audiences that never got a second chance beyond its test run? That's why I want to look at some of those pilots and boil down what makes them unique in their own way, and if they deserve a better life on air. And yes, this is animated pilots. This whole channel is being dedicated towards the medium. So, with that being said, let's take a look at our second entry for the series, a cartoon that could have been.
I'm sorry for what I did to your face.
At least you tried.
So we're hitting the start of October, which means for a lot of people, it's spooky month. So why not point out a pretty spooky failed pilot for this time of season? Except, this time, we'll probably be looking at a familiar face this time around.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Show!
If you grew up in the early 2000s, chances are you are familiar with this frightened little pink dog named Courage. He, along with his elderly caretakers, Muriel and Eustace, live in a town in Kansas where they encounter bizarre, supernatural, and often disturbing creatures, with the titular dog being thrown into these paranormal scenarios. I bet a lot of kids around this time were traumatized at the many scary scenes this show had to offer. But that's what made Courage stand out from the rest of the pack, not only on its network, the Cartoon Network, but cartoons around the early 2000s too. Courage was created by John R. Dilworth, a man who, before the show, worked on an animated short called The Chicken from Outer Space in 1996, which was featured on another Cartoon Network show, What a Cartoon, a series of short cartoons. The short featured the titular dog, Courage, going against a giant anthropomorphic chicken from outer space who tries to take over their farm. The short was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film, and thus, the short would later serve as the pilot for Courage the Cowardly Dog, with some changes of course. The show, which premiered in 1999, followed the same premise, but with a much wider array of bizarre and often terrifying creatures and scenarios. The show often blended elements of horror, dark fantasy, and black comedy, creating a unique and memorable viewing experience. What truly set Courage apart was his ability to tackle complex themes of fear, courage, and the unknown in a way that was accessible to a younger audience, while also resonating with older viewers. The animation style was also distinctive, often employing surreal and grotesque imagery that contributed to its unsettling atmosphere. In the vast landscape of animated television, certain shows carve out a unique and enduring legacy. Courage the Cowardly Dog, with its distinctive blend of horror, humor, and heart, is undeniably one such series.
I wish you hadn't done that.
And the show lasted for 3 years with 4 seasons under its belt. Though some speculate if it was cancelled or not, creator John R. Dilworth decided to move on with other projects, feeling the story has concluded. Although, some say the perceived decline in quality, along with parental complaints about the show being too scary for children, might have been another reason. But that doesn't diminish the fact that this cartoon has a cult following. The atmospheric storytelling, the central dynamic between Courage and his enemies, along with his loving relationship with Muriel, it was really breathtaking. And many consider it one of Cartoon Network's best shows of all time.
Courage the Cowardly Dog, as I've mentioned and even made a whole video on, is one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it is the best cartoon ever made.
But back to Mr. Dilworth. His time after Courage was mainly focused on short projects like Garlic Boy and Pumpkin Reports. Nothing too major, but he kept his time occupied and was pretty satisfied with his life. It wasn't until the early 2010s when an executive from Cartoon Network Asia approached Dilworth, who claimed to be a big fan of the series and asked to make a special for him. And that's pretty much what Dilworth did. He produced the short while living in Barcelona when he was with Time Animation, with additional animation for Sparky Animation from Singapore. Now, it's not mentioned why the executive wanted the short to be entirely 3D, but Dilworth did recall how much he wasn't a fan of the use of CGI as he found it a bit of a challenge, but still kept to the network's wishes and got it done. Originally supposed to air on Cartoon Network US on Halloween 2014, it never materialized, and was only seen in Asian countries back in 2013, though the whole short is up on YouTube for anyone to watch. So hopefully I don't get this video blocked. Fingers crossed. So with that being said, what is the Fog of Courage? Set in the middle of nowhere, Courage is digging through the dirt to find a grabber he uses to help Muriel around the house, along with this mysterious amulet. Upon hearing this, Eustace decides to sell the amulet after hearing its worth, but forgets about the curse behind it. So naturally, a mysterious fog comes out of the hole Courage dug in and tries to reclaim the amulet, surrounding the house with its foggy presence. Courage manages to steal the amulet from Eustace and throws it into the fog's mouth, making him disappear. He also saves Muriel from falling off the roof, which I have no idea how she got up there. All is well and good until Eustace is back to his old tricks again. And that was the Fog of Courage. A very simple, 7-minute short all done by CGI. So why was this the only new theme from Courage in the past decade with no more CGI segments to be produced? Well, let's look at the positives to this short. It pretty much captures the same charm of the original, with the dynamic of Courage and his caretakers, a never memorable villain, plus some callbacks with Muriel saying,
I wonder what's happened to Eustace.
and Courage's iconic saying.
The things I do for love!
Although this was included after the animation was done, so mind that little error. And I gotta say, the CGI helps recapture that special magic the show has, knowing there has been some CGI in the past, albeit with different enemies throughout the show. In fact, this short really takes a very similar plot from an already iconic episode, King Ramses' Curse. You know the one.
Return the slab.
Very similar plot threads with Courage finding a relic and Eustace trying to sell it, despite being haunted by King Ramses himself. Although the short does heavily reuse the same elements from that episode, it makes it a little fresh with the new CGI look, and the new villain. This Casper-looking reject of a fog is quite creative and original, still giving off an eerie and disturbing vibe to him, and even an attempted jump scare in the mix. It's funny to note that John Dilworth, who voiced King Ramses, also voices this fog, named Clyde. Those whimpering voice lines of makes for a very unsettling character, and that's perfect for a show like Courage. Also, they interpret new ways for Courage getting scared too. I especially like this multiple face scream here, and it all ends in a happy ending. Well, kind of.
What is it? I'm busy!
Now, both actors who play Courage and Muriel come back for the special. Arthur Anderson, who has taken over the voice for Eustace from episodes 34 through 52, did not return. And in a surprise twist of events, Wallace Shawn of all people got to voice the grouchy elder. Yeah, the inconceivable guy.
It's inconceivable! Conceivable! Inconceivable!
Dilworth is a big fan of The Princess Bride, and specifically wanted Shawn to portray Eustace in his own way. Now, I do think this was an interesting approach to the character, and I think Wallace Shawn did a pretty good job for this role. But there was a lack of presence here.
Can a man be alone with his jewelry?
Like, you can tell it's Wallace Shawn voicing an old guy. It does sound a little off-putting for some who are used to Arthur Anderson's more Scottish charm, or the earlier episodes with Lionel Wilson. Again, it's a nice little cameo, but it would get some taking used to if Wallace voiced him if the series continued. And yet, the series never did continue. And why is that? Well, the answer is unknown. Many claim the special was made for a potential series, but ultimately was shelved. And to be honest, I kinda blame the region blocking. Only Southeast Asia got the special airing, with Indian airing a year later. And the supposed airing for the US for Halloween being scrapped hurt its chances for beloved Courage fans to watch it. The limited release was a significant hurdle. For a potential reboot to gain traction, widespread availability is paramount. Without it, even the most passionate fans couldn't rally behind the project, let alone attract new viewers. This regional blocking isolated the Fog of Courage from the very audience that could have propelled it forward. And while the CGI was a bold new direction, it also presented a departure from the distinctive 2D animation that defined Courage the Cowardly Dog. Dilworth himself noted the challenges and his personal preference for 2D. While the short did a commendable job of translating the show's aesthetic into 3D, there's always a risk with such a significant visual shift. Audiences often have a strong attachment to the original art style, and any deviation, no matter how well executed, can be met with resistance. The charm of Courage was deeply intertwined with its surreal, hand-drawn look, and the CGI, while technically proficient, might have felt slightly off-brand to some longtime viewers, even if it maintained the spirit. Furthermore, the creative decision to essentially retell a classic episode could be seen as playing it a little too safe for a pilot meant to launch a new series. While it demonstrated the show's enduring formula, it didn't necessarily push the narrative boundaries or introduce truly fresh concepts that would compel a network to greenlight a full season. A successful pilot often needs to hint at a broader world and demonstrate the potential for new stories, not just reiterate past triumphs. The Fog of Courage was a valiant effort to bring back a cult classic, demonstrating that the heart of the show is still beating strong. However, a combination of limited distribution, the inherent risk of a significant animation style change, a somewhat derivative plot, and a key voice actor change likely contributed to its failure to launch a full series reboot. It remains a fascinating glimpse into what could have been, a testament to the enduring appeal of that frightened pink dog, but ultimately a missed opportunity to truly bring it back to the wider audience. The last thing we ever gotten from the Pink Pup was a collaboration film with Scooby-Doo in 2021, something that Dilworth wasn't even a part of. But you know, even with these little setbacks, I still think this was something to appreciate. Something the studio took a chance with, and could possibly go back to in the future. But as of now, this was definitely a cartoon, or in this case, reboot, that could have been.
What?
Cariana.
Get off my property!